Coach Bruce Miller is synonymous with Homer football, and with good reason. Miller coached the most football games at Homer High School, won the most football games at Homer High, and also led Homer High to its only 11-man conference title and its only perfect season. From the mid-1960s until he stepped down as Homer's head man in 1980, Coach Miller led the Panthers on the gridiron, and a large number of former players fondly remember him as not only a great coach, but as a man who taught more than just football, preparing young men to be successful in life after high school. Miller came out of the gate firing, pushing his Panthers for the East Central Conference crown annually. The team never lost more than 2 conference games in any of the 5 seasons Miller was at the helm in the ECC, winning 1 title and claiming 2 runner-up spots. During that time frame, the team went 27-7-1 in ECC play and 29-10-1 overall.
Let's talk about first how you ended up at Homer. My understanding is when you first came to Homer, you actually coached basketball for a year before you took over football and track.
I started my career at Ridge Farm, coached 1 year there, came back and got my master's, and I had been teaching maybe the summer before, but definitely that summer. I've been teaching the Compton boys and girl, and Gerald was the president of the board and asked me to come out and interview. And I went out Friday night or something like that and had an interview with the principal, and he told me, he hired me right then, don't talk to anybody, because he didn't have any papers or anything that had to be typed up and for me to sign. So I started there, and yes, I thought I wanted to be a basketball coach, and I loved the game of basketball. I played a lot of it, an AU team, and I was an assistant football coach at Georgetown Assistant Basketball. So I did coach that 1 year or 2 years, and I know the board thought it was too much. Here's this guy's head football, head basketball, head track, and they told me to pick a sport of the 2. So I picked football, and never regretted that in my life. Loved the game, and that's how I started.
I mean, just that attitude of he was always quick with a comment, a compliment even. Whether it was on the football field, PE class, health class, just walking down the hallway, he recognized who you were. And now, granted, Homer is a small school, so it's not hard to recognize people, but it almost like he went out of his way. You'd see a lot of teachers would go by and they just kind of nod their head. He was always, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? Energy. I mean, I think he had a lot more energy than a lot of the other teachers and staff that were at the school. And I think back in the day, that's what we like seeing. We like seeing a little bit of a teacher being real, being normal.
Miller was touted for offensive blocking schemes that were ahead of his time and was considered quite successful in keeping highly talented teams grounded.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Coach Miller. I mean, you played for him for 4 years, and you were a little bit later in Coach's career.
Yeah.
But what was it about Coach Miller that you think made him a good coach?
Well, I think he instilled toughness in these players, respect, perseverance. He just expected you to come to practice and, keep your mouth shut, don't goof off, do what you're told, and everything was great.
Well, I think the thing about Coach was that he was able to adjust to his personnel. When we came into high school, they were running the I, and of course with that you need a big fullback, which we had in our class. We had Brian Taylor, who would have been a heck of a football player, but of course he had an injury, hurt his knee, and so Coach had to adjust, and so then he went to more of a wide open offense where we had 2 backs that were fast, and so we were trying to get to the outside. He went to more of a passing game, which they hadn't really done throughout the years, and so by the end of our senior year, we were leading the area in scoring. We threw for almost 1,000 yards, had 1 back almost 1,000 yards, another one probably over 500. So I mean, he just was able to adjust on the fly and what he needed to do with the personnel.
He constantly drove us and was constantly trying to get us better, and you know, his goal was perfection, and he was just always teaching and you know, encouraging us to give our best effort to the team.
I think Coach Miller was probably 20 years ahead of his time offensively. We ran blocking schemes that most teams back then blocked straight ahead. You know, we ran traps. Just about any kind of offense you see today, we ran. And you didn't see that with other schools, at least smaller schools. I didn't.
Just, you know, some of the things you remember about Coach, about, you know, what made him a good coach? What made players want to play for him?
Personally, I think it was his passion. You could see when he's coaching out there, you could see that he had a passion for watching you perform the way he had it drawn out in the playbook. There was a I don't want to say a hardened passion, but it was a passion where he didn't expect perfection. I mean, he expected perfection, but he didn't beat you up if you didn't get it. You know, your effort. He wanted the effort. He wanted to see what you could do, how you could do it, and put your best effort into it. And I think in a lot of ways, he was not so much coaching, but guiding you through the plays.
He was very knowledgeable about the game, extremely knowledgeable. And I remember when I was a freshman, they were getting ready to play, the seniors were getting ready to play, I believe it was Cerro Gordo. And he kept telling John Wilson all week during practice, he told John, he said, when they get in this formation, John, all I want you to do is back up and hold your hands up in the air. That's all I want you to do, and you'll get an interception. And we're all sitting there, you know, like, okay. Well, this went on all week long, and game time came. They got in that formation, hiked the ball. John fell back, put his hands up, and the quarterback threw the ball and hit him right in the gut. Of course, John didn't run very far, but it was our ball, you know, Panther football. So it worked out pretty well.
I don't think that any of us came into football realizing, understanding that there were actually these intricate plays. And he had these blocking schemes that you had to look ahead and see if you were going to block straight ahead or go to the right. He introduced this concept of the trap play, and it took some getting used to. We had not only our practice on the field, but of course we then would have our sessions, you know, in the cafeteria there afterwards, where he would be explaining all this. He taught the game as well as coached it.
He was a tough coach. I kind of, and this is not a fair comparison, but I kind of liken him a little bit to almost a Lombardi syndrome, in that in a practice session, if you were not performing, and I've even seen a couple games where, you know, you guy come off the sideline, he's grabbing a face mask and he is just right into him. Then you go to the next practice, and he's like, "That's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see." Which is kind of like stories I've read about Lombardi. Jumping on, at that time, one of the all-time great pro guards, Jerry Kramer, telling him to get off his football field. And then going back in later and saying, "Hey, you were lousy today, but I expect better, but you're going to be better tomorrow." That was Coach Miller. You didn't do well today. Here's why. Fix it. You come out, you make the effort. He recognized that. So yeah, he was tough, but he was fair.
You guys obviously during your time played in some pretty big time games. I mean, even the next year you guys, I think, going against St. Joe, had a chance at the title if you win against them. So you were always right there playing in big games. Did Coach have any special way or special things that he did to kind of motivate you guys for games that were really of utmost importance?
Before both of those St. Joe games, my junior year and my senior year, he and the assistants came to everyone's house and talked to us the night before. that had a profound impact. That he would take that time to come out and talk to us. My junior year it worked. The senior year not so much. And in fact, the senior year, that night, that day, it rained, it snowed. The field was absolutely a mud bowl, as I recall. And he spent the entire day spraying this substance on the cleats that supposedly would make mud slide off the cleat. And he was with that aerosol stuff so long it actually affected him that night.
Really?
He was sick the night that we played St. Joe my senior year. Very sick. But he had a job to do. He did it.
Oh, just he always, again, talking about kidding around with you, or if he really wanted to get to you, he'd dig that thumb into your neck, which I don't know if you guys had to deal with that. In PE.
A lot was in the chest, thumb in the chest.
Yeah, I mean, just a great human being, a great leader. I can remember, I think it was our junior year, Oakland came in, and they were leading the conference. And it might have been on homecoming, maybe it wasn't, but I remember Coach coming in and just all of a sudden just yelling that we got to get out and win this game tonight. There's a lot of people here to watch us, and we were able to upset the leader at that time, Oakland. So,
Bruce had this exercise that he called the cross body block. And I think my ribs might still be suffering from that. The back, when he would hand the ball, as if he were a quarterback, hand the ball to the running back, who would then run forward, and you crossed them perpendicular and threw your body into their legs. And they hated it, we hated it, and it was just an awful routine, but it was part of making us tough. And speaking of that, in the my junior year, I believe it was, in the Catlin game, I'm absolutely positive I broke my right little finger. And I mean, it hurt. And I came over to the sideline, and I was probably crying, quite frankly. It hurt so badly. He said, "What's wrong?" And I just held my hand up like that, and he said, "You're fine." It was right back into the game. So that's, he taught all kinds of toughness.
My senior year, we had, I believe, if memory serves me correct, we had 18 people on the football team, freshman through senior. So you're playing, because of the numbers, you're playing a lot of freshmen. And when you go out there, every Friday night, and you're starting freshmen, and you're competing against, all these other schools, it's tough. And I will say this: every week we got better. We got better every week, and we were 4-5 that year. But I personally, I'm very proud of that year, and I know he has to be, because I think he did a great job, because each week we got better. Along with that, in the last game of that year, we played Oakland, and they were in first place, and they were going to go to the playoffs, and they were going to be conference champs. All they had to do was beat Homer. Well, all week long, he kept telling us how, I think we're going to beat Oakland. We're going to beat Oakland. We're going to beat Oakland. You know what? We beat Oakland and knocked them out of the playoffs and out of the conference championship. And I remember he came in the locker room and he said, I feel bad, we were all, wrong. It was our last game. And he was telling us how he actually kind of felt bad for the Oakland players, because a lot of them were in the locker room crying, and, they were broke up because, that was their conference, they lost their conference championship. But I've always been a little proud of that. So, Coach did a great job. He was a kidder, and he liked to play with the guys a little bit. And I remember we were at practice one night, and Randy Allen, Randy's a big old farm boy, big strong farm boy, great guy, and but he's a country boy, and we're having practice, and Randy had goofed up something. I forget now what it was. And Coach got on him. He goes, "Randy, I told you you're supposed to be over here." Next thing you know, these cuss words come out of Randy's mouth, because he's, that's what he does on the farm. And our jaws just open. We're like, oh my God, everybody was dead silent. And Coach looked at him and he goes, "Start running, Alan," and he pointed to the track, and everybody died laughing because he was grinning. And so yeah, it was, and that's just a moment that I'll remember. And there's several like that. He could definitely lighten the mood, definitely.
When the Homer High School Hall of Fame was first created, the number one question, without question, was when are you going to induct Bruce Miller? Only Coach Ray Litherland gave as much of his time as a coach to Homer High School sports, so it's only fitting that Coach Miller be the first coach to join Litherland in the High School Hall of Fame.
And even to this day, when I see him, I don't call him Bruce, I don't call him coach, he's just coach to me. There's certain guys that wear that title throughout life, and I think he's one of them. He's coach.
Well, he always stressed that in football you were going to learn more about life than football, than the game of football, and he was right. I mean, you use that whole week to build up as a team. It had to be a team, it wasn't one person. And so from that I've learned to, in my job, to rely on other people. You've got to have good people around you, and to be successful you've got to be able to delegate and be more focused, which he was. I mean, on game days he was so focused and ready to go.
The first thing that you think about, that I think about, of course, when I think about those years with Bruce, was winning. It's kind of funny because that's not the most important thing that he brought to the table for us. He taught us some life lessons in the context of a football team. Hard work, dedication to a team effort, the good of all rather than just the individual. Things that I took away from that and have been able to use for the last, I guess, 49 years now or something like that.
Well, was always pretty attentive to the players. He didn't let any shenanigans go on. I have a lot of respect for him. He had a lot of young boys come into the football program, and he turned them into young men, including myself. So I have a lot of fond memories of playing football in Homer.
3 years ago when the team got the award, I've always regretted that I didn't stand up and say a little bit more about him. We had a lot of talent. There's no question about that. And what I wanted to say 3 years ago, and now I get my opportunity, all the talent in the world is no good unless you have someone to lead it. And that certainly is what we had with Bruce. He was our leader, he was our teacher, and he had our best interests at heart. Now, you're talking about a little bit of humor with him. Don't get me wrong. There were nights at practice I'd have been more than willing to strangle him. He was, I think my biggest regret is my son never had that kind of football experience. And now that all of us are older, we've had kids, and some of us have had grandkids. When you send your kids off to school, you wonder who's in charge, who's going to be taking care of them. And the people of Homer need to know that when they sent us to Bruce, you sent us to the right guy.
Well, if there's ever a coach that belongs in a Hall of Fame, it's Coach Bruce Miller. That's just my opinion. He's truly a Hall of Famer. So that's what I feel about him.
Any message you want to send to Coach?
No, congratulations, well deserved. And every time I see you, you sure don't look like you're getting any older.